The three of them returned to the lobby, an awkward silence hanging in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. Kim Seyoung, looking like he just got caught in an embarrassing dream, can't shake off the memory of what he did. Imagine bowing down to Lee Hoyoung like he was some kind of noble lord, pledging allegiance, and even addressing some low-level rookie as Sir. Cringefest, right? As they each experience the sweet buzz of leveling up, Chai Yiziel cheerfully congratulates Lee Hoyoung, who responds with a humble smile that almost says, "Ah, shucks, it was nothing." Meanwhile, Seyoung, holding back the urge to explode, silently swears he'll serve only his boss. He's on the edge, knowing if word of this humiliation gets out, he's done for. But hey, he's a man of his word, and there's no taking it back now. Lee Hoyoung, seeing Seyoung's face contorted in frustration, wonders if the guy's just holding in a bad case of stomach cramps. Chai Yiziel, scanning the empty lobby, guesses they're the first ones back and asks if they were the quickest. Hoyoung nods, saying they got lucky by figuring out the kobold's weakness. Seyoung, putting 2 and 2 together, realizes they actually placed first. Yiziel, practically bouncing with excitement, yells that it wasn't just luck, it was Hoyoung's sharp eyes. Without him spotting the opportunity to use poison, they'd still be bashing their heads against a wall. Hoyoung laughs it off, claiming her support was crucial, all while secretly thinking, "I'm a total fraud." As other parties trickle back in, Lee Hoyoung notices Kim Junsong and Seo Juno's group. They probably found the poisonous apples too, he muses, hoping the rest of the teams make it out alive. Their thoughts get interrupted by a sudden commotion as another party limps in, but only 2 members make it. Chai Yiziel's face falls as she asks about the third person, but the answer comes through choked sobs. Just the 2 of them survived. The announcement blares that the first-level mission has ended for all parties, and they repeat the message like a broken record. Yiziel tries to argue with the system, shouting that someone's still missing, but the mechanical voice drones on. 6 parties returned, 8 players failed. Lee Hoyoung, already expecting a grim outcome, feels his heart sink further. 8 dead, just like that. He pictures a field of skulls around him, contemplating how many more will fall before they reach the top. Then the announcement shifts gears, stating that they're calculating the mission results for the survivors. The party that completed the level first gets 1,000 gold each. Yiziel and Seyoung beam at their status screens, confirming their first-place victory. Hoyoung glances at his profile, noticing his 2,000 gold for both bonuses. It's less than what he got during the tutorial, but hey, gold's like a survival insurance policy. Gotta save up. Just as he's enjoying the moment, someone shouts, demanding to know which party claimed first place. With everyone staring daggers at him, Hoyoung realizes he can't dodge this one. Before he can open his mouth, Seyoung bursts out, boasting that it was them, calling everyone else weaklings. Hoyoung side-eyes him, thinking the guy's conveniently forgotten about being pounded by those kobolds. The atmosphere is tense, but Seyoung's bravado loosens it a bit. The crowd's mood, however, sours quickly as a woman snorts that for someone who took first place, his level is a measly 2. A man chimes in, pointing out he got 2,000 gold without lifting a finger. Another voice mocks his scaredy-cat performance, and yet another asks if he doesn't feel the least bit ashamed. Hoyoung sighs internally. He thought the tension was easing up. Guess not. Yiziel tries to defend him, but he gently stops her, knowing it's pointless. They're not going to listen. He'll have to prove them wrong. Suddenly, Kim Junsong's voice cuts through the chaos, urging everyone to focus on surviving instead of arguing. His profile shows up, revealing his level 8 status as an archer, one of the highest in the area. Seo Juno backs him up, reminding them they need to push forward for the sake of the fallen. His profile reveals him as a combat swordsman also at level 8. Their words seem to rally the crowd, and soon, more people are shouting encouragement, trying to pull themselves together. Then, without warning, the blue flame on the torch sputters out, replaced by an intense red blaze, which flares up throughout the area, accompanied by an ominous announcement. People panic, the color change signifying something they'd rather not know. The voice announces that the survival rate for Region C, 2567, is below average and a penalty mission is now in effect. Someone shouts, asking what the heck a penalty mission is. The voice clarifies. It's a death mission, and everyone must vote for one player to take it on. Time is set at 5 minutes, and chaos ensues. The announcement mentions that if they don't vote, they'll automatically vote for themselves. The clock starts ticking, and the grim realization sinks in they have to choose someone to die. Amid the chaos, Yziel suggests if they all vote for themselves, no one has to do the mission. Someone agrees, but Lee Jichil points out the bitter truth. They could all end up doing it. Yziel's argument falls flat, and the seconds keep ticking away. With over a minute left, a woman points at Hoyoung, naming him as her vote. Others join in, and soon, Hoyoung's name tag is littered with names. Hoyoung knows why. He's the weakest, after all. Society's idea of protecting the weak? Long gone. Yziel's voice cracks as she pleads for mercy, but the crowd's too desperate to care. A man shouts back that he's got no choice. He doesn't want to die either. A woman cynically adds that Hoyoung would have died anyway, being so low-level. Masks drop, true colors show. With a second to spare, even Seong tosses a vote his way, his sorry ringing hollow. The announcement declares the votes are in, and a portal for the death mission materializes. The crowd gasps, reality setting in. Yziel's eyes well up as she calls out for Hoyoung, but Seong, now laughing, seems relieved, thinking his problem's solved if Hoyoung's out of the picture. Hoyoung watches the portal, thinking the sacrificial lamb's been chosen. As he steps towards it, leaving behind faces twisted with guilt and relief, a notification catches his eye. Participation in the death mission is recommended, high chance of success, and a juicy reward awaits. With a determined grin, he strides into the portal, ready to face whatever's on the other side. As the candidates stand around anxiously, Kim Jun-song steps up to Kim Seong and Chai Yziel, concern etched on his face. He remarks, with a hint of sadness, that even though they didn't spend much time together, they've been each other's support, and it feels bitter to part ways like this. Seong, voice tinged with irritation, shrugs it off, saying it's not bitter at all, just karma playing out. Jun-song looks puzzled, asking what Seong means by that. Seong snaps, if you just take a look at Lee Hoyoung's level, it's obvious he was freeloading while I carried the entire group. Chai Yziel, eyes glistening with unshed tears, fires back that Hoyoung's abilities were what got them through the ordeal. Seong, his voice rising, dismisses her words, insisting Hoyoung was merely lucky, landing finishing blows on enemies already on their last legs. Yziel, indignant, asks if Seong has conveniently forgotten that Hoyoung saved his life when he was at death's door. Seong falls silent, anger bubbling up as he replays the scenes with Hoyoung and the kobolds. A flicker of doubt crosses his mind. Could Hoyoung have some secret skill to disguise his true level? Jun-song, sensing the tension escalating, interjects, saying he truly hopes Hoyoung is as capable as Yziel believes because that might be his only shot at surviving. Yziel, wiping her tears and thinking back to Hoyoung's confident vow to prove himself, steels herself and declares that she knows he'll return. Jun-song, nodding with a gentle smile, expresses his agreement, clinging to that sliver of hope. Meanwhile, in the eerie depths of the Kobold tribe's territory, Lee Hoyoung surveys the familiar creatures lurking around. The atmosphere is thick with tension, but the guide's status window fills him with confidence. He muses that he was almost ready to vote himself off the island if things got dire, but now it's clear he's in control. Recalling Kim Seong's sneering face, Hoyoung's grip on his sword tightens, ready to settle the score once and for all. Suddenly, a system notification rings out, announcing the return of the kobold's hunting party. Hoyoung's eyes narrow as he spots the enraged kobolds stalking toward him, signaling the start of his death mission. Eliminate the chieftain and the frenzied hunting group. As the level 12 kobold chieftain growls menacingly, Hoyoung's pulse quickens with adrenaline. The guide's status window flashes. Like the other kobolds, the chieftain is highly susceptible to poison. Hoyoung coats his sword with poison apple pulp, knowing that a level 12 boss monster and its enraged minions would be a death sentence for anyone else. The chieftain lunges, swinging its massive spear, but Hoyoung deftly sidesteps, letting the weapon crash into the ground. Fueled by a newfound confidence, he dispatches the lesser kobolds one by one with his level 2 swordsmanship, determined to claim victory. As the last of them falls, he turns to face the chieftain, taunting it for the final battle. His first strike misses as the chieftain nimbly dodges, making Hoyoung begrudgingly respect its skill, definitely worthy of a boss fight. But just as suddenly, the chieftain turns tail and runs, leaving Hoyoung in shock. Frustrated and refusing to let it escape, he chases after it, managing to land a few hits from behind, watching its HP drop. This feels almost too easy. Just as he's about to finish the job, his sword unexpectedly got stuck in the chieftain's hide. Glancing up, he sees a bright red full moon casting an eerie light over the scene. The chieftain's eyes glow crimson, and with a deafening roar, it slashed its spear into Hoyoung's shoulder, drawing a spray of blood. Back in the lobby, Kim Seong scoffs, saying there's no use fretting over someone who's probably dead by now. He declares that from now on, he'll take charge and carry the team to the top. Chai Yiziel, still holding on to hope, prays quietly for Hoyoung's safety. Seong sneers at her, mocking her for wasting prayers on someone who's already a goner. She snaps back, saying that even in this hellhole, a little decency wouldn't kill him. Seong rolls his eyes, insisting he hasn't said anything out of line. Just then, someone shouts, pointing toward the portal. The group turns as one, eyes widening in disbelief as Lee Hoyoung emerges. A system announcement proclaiming that the player who participated in the death mission has returned alive. Hoyoung, wearing a faint smile, confirms his triumphant return. Reflecting on the guide's warning about the chieftain's strength under the red moon, Hoyoung replays the moment when his shoulder was slashed open. With his HP dangerously low, he had leaned against a tree, desperately trying to stanch the bleeding. When the chieftain charged again, its own HP barely hanging on, Hoyoung dodged at the last moment, letting the chieftain's spear smash into the tree trunk. That's when it hit him. While a sword might struggle against a wall, a carefully driven nail could pierce right through. Pouring every ounce of his strength and the chieftain's own momentum into one decisive thrust, Hoyoung drove his blade into the chieftain's heart, delivering a fatal blow. A system message popped up, confirming that stabbing had been added to his swordsmanship skills. He had cleared the death mission. Back in the tower, Chai Yiziel races toward Hoyoung, arms outstretched, shouting that she knew he'd make it back. Just as she's about to embrace him, she's abruptly shoved aside. Dazed, she looks up to see Kim Seong gripping Hoyoung in a tight bear hug, exuberantly declaring that he knew Hoyoung would return and calling him Big Brother, like they've been best friends all along. Typical Seong, always quick to jump on the winning side. Kim Seong clings tightly to Lee Hoyoung, shouting with wild excitement, "I knew you'd make it, big bro." A measly death mission could never take down the strongest guy in the universe. His laughter echoes as he boasts about Hoyoung's invincibility. Lee Hoyoung, his patience hanging by a thread, clenches his fist, resisting the overwhelming urge to punch Seong's teeth in. Their reunion is interrupted by Lee Byung-keol, who raises an eyebrow, his tone skeptical. "Did you really clear the death mission?" He adds that he's relieved Hoyoung made it back, but if he completed the mission, he should have gained a hefty chunk of experience points. Yet Hoyoung's level is still the same. The murmurs around them grow louder as the other candidates exchange glances, noting that Hoyoung is still at level 2. Some speculate if it's like the rabbit mod, implying Hoyoung's achievement might be meaningless. Hearing their whispers, Hoyoung's chest tightens. He thinks he's grown numb to it, but the world never misses a chance to push the weak further down. A bitter memory resurfaces, his first academic assessment as a child. He remembers kids whispering behind his back, one girl marveling at how he topped the midterm, while a boy accused him of cheating, sneering at how a pathetic orphan could ace exams without private tutoring. They couldn't stand to see a worm like him rise, so they wanted to crush him back into the dirt. And here he is again, surrounded by a mob ready to tear him down. Someone suggests that maybe Hoyoung just hid somewhere during the mission, biding his time. Another agrees, saying it's plausible because, at his level, he couldn't have done much besides cower in a corner. Hoyoung's grip tightens around his sword, his knuckles turning white. He already knows people like this don't change their minds easily, but right now he needs to show them something undeniable. Before he can respond, Chai Yiziel's voice cuts through the chatter. "Enough! Why do you keep doubting him?" Her tone is firm, eyes blazing with anger. She points out that Hoyoung has already proven himself by surviving the death mission. Hoyoung turns to her, heartened by her unwavering support. Seong, never one to miss a moment, jumps in, backing Yiziel up and calling her big sis. He shouts, "You guys must be out of your minds. Instead of throwing a party to celebrate my big bro's glorious return, you're ruining the mood? Shame on you." Hoyoung glances at Seong, who's rambling on, thinking he sounds like the biggest nutjob here. But oddly enough, Hoyoung feels a small sense of reassurance. He knows if they want to survive the tower, he needs everyone on the same page. To achieve that, he must give them something to believe in. He steps forward, presenting the sword now named Indomitable Sword. Its rare rank and plus 15% attack power leave the crowd stunned. Lee Byung-keol's eyes widen, exclaiming that such a high attack boost is practically a cheat code. A woman checks her own weapon, a dull, worn sword, and mutters that no special information appears for it. Kim Junsong, eyes sparkling, praises Hoyoung for holding onto the poison apple, calling him truly extraordinary, just as Chai Yizil had said. Yizil claps for him, but Hoyoung, modest as ever, insists it was just luck. Junsong, however, points out that getting a reward like this is more valuable than experience points for their survival. Hoyoung's expression hardens. Survival, huh? You mean, after you all almost sent me to my death? A heavy silence falls, everyone at a loss for words. Seo Juno steps forward, looking utterly ashamed. He admits Hoyoung is right, head bowed, tears streaming down his face. He confesses that he justified voting for Hoyoung by telling himself it was unavoidable. But deep down, he knows it was pure selfishness. He was only relieved it wasn't him facing death. Juno bows deeply, apologizing through choked sobs, saying he's truly glad Hoyoung made it back alive. Hoyoung and the others watch in silence. A woman with a carefree attitude breaks the silence. Come on, why the drama? Someone had to go, and Hoyoung came back with a rare item. It's all good, right? Seo Juno's head snaps up, glaring at her. How can you say that, Seo Eunjin? Don't you feel even a shred of guilt? Eunjin shrugs, cool as ever, and counters. Weren't you the first to vote for him? Hoyoung raises a hand, stopping Juno from responding. He explains that he didn't bring this up to blame anyone but to prevent it from happening again. He points out that they must have realized during the death mission voting, the tower is trying to tear them apart, sowing distrust and conflict. His survival proves they can defy its expectations. Kim Junsong, looking inspired, asks Hoyoung if he has a plan for what's next. Hoyoung nods. We'll find a way for the most people to survive and keep climbing the tower. Step by step, we'll reach the top and reclaim our lives. His words resonate, a spark of hope igniting in the candidates. Chai Yizil cheers, saying they'll all have to join hands to make it happen. Hoyoung agrees, and Seo Juno, tears still glistening, smiles, thinking Hoyoung is truly a generous man, far above petty concerns like level or status. Suddenly, a booming voice interrupts their resolve. How touching. But isn't this unfortunate? It's Kum Kum, grinning mischievously as it enters. It announces that the next mission is a survival game. People groan and protest, asking why it's back again and if they'll get stat points this time too. Hoyoung, a chill running down his spine, cautiously asks what a survival mission means. Kum Kum chuckles, calling him sharp, and explains that the level 2 mission will be a battle royale among the 15 players here. The candidates are stunned into silence as Kum Kum elaborates. There will be 16 players and 16 doppelgangers, 32 fighters in total. To clear the mission, they must kill the doppelgangers who have the same stats and memories as the players. The catch? There's no reward for killing a doppelganger, but taking out another player will net stat points and gold. The mission is a golden opportunity for those willing to betray. Chaos erupts as people shout accusations and fears. Kum Kum twists its finger with a malicious grin, adding that every 30 minutes without a kill, everyone will be summoned to face a massive disaster in the lobby. As it speaks, a purple light flashes, and panic spreads. A clawed hand emerges from the lightning. Someone screams that something's coming through. Lee Hoyoung's legs lock as he stares at the giant, its level unreadable. Seo Juno shouts at him to move, but Hoyoung's mind races, thinking this is exactly what Kum Kum wants. To pit them against a monstrosity that's way out of their league. A thunderous explosion rips through the air, sending everyone sprawling to the ground. Lee Hoyoung's gaze locks onto the towering behemoth before him, and he can't help but think, This is a disaster. A man nearby, shaking like a leaf, mutters in disbelief. Is this even real? How the hell are we supposed to fight that when we barely survived the first floor? A woman, her face ghostly pale, pleads desperately, Please, someone help us. I don't want to die here. As the chaos unfolds, Lee Hoyoung observes the sheer panic gripping everyone around him. The monster lets out an ear-splitting roar, its colossal fist swinging down toward a man frozen in terror. Without hesitating, Lee Hoyoung rushes forward, grabbing the man and yanking him out of the monster's path. The man, gasping in relief, thanks him profusely, but Hoyoung, still dazed, can't help but wonder. We haven't even started the second floor mission yet. What is this thing doing here? Kum Kum's voice drips with mock sympathy. Oh, how terrifying. It quips, feigning concern. Hoyoung recalls Kumkum's earlier warning. If no one dies every 30 minutes, they'd be summoned to face a disaster. He speculates that this might just be a spectacle, a way to scare them into taking the mission seriously. If that's the case, the monster isn't truly here to kill them, right? Kim Junsong and Kim Seong engage the beast with everything they've got, but their attacks bounce off its thick hide. Junsong, panting and frustrated, shouts, "Why isn't this working? I've shot so many arrows, and it's like they're nothing." Seong, equally exasperated, swears under his breath, his sword clanging uselessly against the creature's leg. Watching their futile struggle, Lee Hoyoung grits his teeth. No, this doesn't seem like just a scare tactic anymore. Is this thing actually trying to kill us? His thoughts are interrupted by Chai Yiziel's strained voice. While healing the injured, she cries out, "I'm out of mana. I can't keep this up." Hoyoung surveys the scene. No one's dead yet, but it's only a matter of time. He knows they're running out of options. A man shouts a warning as the monster rears back for another devastating blow. Lee Hoyoung steps forward, commanding everyone to fall back. There's no time to hesitate, he tells himself. With a determined resolve, he charges forward, his mind racing. Seo Juno yells at him to retreat, but Hoyoung's focus is unshakable. If I can't stop this thing, everyone will die. He assesses the synergy between his indomitable sword and his level 8 basic swordsmanship. It's got to work. It has to. As he prepares to strike, the monster suddenly disintegrates into the wind, vanishing without a trace. For a moment, everyone is stunned into silence, staring in disbelief. Then, cheers erupt, and they begin chanting his name. Lee Hoyoung, still gripping his sword, blinks in confusion, marveling at its power. Is it really this strong? He's never experienced anything like this before. But before he can process it further, a status window pops up, notifying him that he'll be in an exhausted state for 3 minutes due to overexertion. He collapses to the ground, groaning, "I'm doomed," as the crowd's cheers fade around him. Minutes later, Lee Hoyoung comes to, surrounded by worried faces. The status window indicates his exhaustion has lifted. He hears Chai Yiziel and Kim Junsong asking if he's okay, while Seo Juno, eyes shining with admiration, praises his humility and strength, even calling his fainting a perfect exit. Hoyoung, struggling to stand, asks, "What happened to the huge disaster?" Seo Juno begins to explain, but Kumkum interrupts, smirking. "Oh, don't worry. The monster's been sent back. It was just a little preview to get you all in the right mood." Hoyoung, still reeling, realizes it was just a test. Kumkum adds with a mischievous grin, "Not very exciting though, was it? You were all so chummy despite nearly getting crushed. Remember, a kill has to happen every 30 minutes. And I mean any kill. The ones standing next to you, they might just be the ones to stab you in the back." A cold silence settles over the crowd as the implications sink in. Kumkum, its message delivered, vanishes, leaving them in tense silence. Grinding his teeth, Lee Hoyoung wonders, is there no way out of this nightmare? The blue light flickers ominously, and Seo Juno, his voice grim, says, "If we can't identify the doppelgangers, we'll have no choice but to kill each other." Lee Jicheol, his voice urgent, demands they find a solution fast. Someone suggests marking everyone since the doppelgangers share their memories, but another questions how they'll know who's real and who's not. Lee Hoyoung steps forward, drawing everyone's attention. "I have an idea," he announces. Chai Yiziel, intrigued, asks what he has in mind. "During the mission, only I will move. The rest of you should gather at the highest point on the 2nd floor. If anyone else makes a move, assume they're a doppelganger and deal with them accordingly." On Sechang, a towering figure at level 9 and a former Special Forces member, crosses his arms, skeptical. "And why should we follow your plan?" A woman, equally doubtful, scoffs. "You're barely level 2. Why should we trust you?" Lee Hoyoung meets their eyes with steely determination. "Because Kumkum said there's no reward for killing a doppelganger, but killing another player nets you stat points and gold. The tower wants us to turn on each other, not the doppelgangers. I won't play their game. This is the best way to ensure we don't fall into their trap." Kim Junsong, after a moment's thought, nods. "It makes sense. We can minimize casualties this way." He then asks, "Hoyoung, do you have a way to identify the doppelgangers?" Hoyoung's lips curl into a confident grin. "Of course I do. The forest looms around them as the status window blinks, indicating the start of the second floor mission. They have 30 minutes to kill someone. 16 players and 16 doppelgangers. Kim Seong, grumbling about the risky plan, hides behind a tree. A voice calls out to him, and he freezes, noting that his large frame isn't exactly stealthy. But relief washes over him as he recognizes Lee Hoyoung. Big bro, I thought you were a doppelganger. With a swift, fluid motion, he slashes through Seong, splitting him in two. What just happened? Let's rewind a bit. As they ventured deeper into the forest, Lee Hoyoung took it upon himself to handle all the killings. The status window flashed a grim message. The second floor mission had begun, and each player had to kill at least one person within 30 minutes. With 16 players and 16 doppelgangers, Hoyoung's focus locked onto his guide status window, which revealed a critical detail. The first player to reach a certain sensitivity level would obtain the impeccable senses skill, an ability crucial for detecting doppelgangers. Hoyoung felt a surge of both pride and anxiety, knowing that his earlier boast about distinguishing doppelgangers might come true with this skill. As he watched his stats fluctuate, uncertainty gnawed at him, wondering how many points he would need to invest. Then, abruptly, another status window appeared, congratulating him on being the first to reach a sensitivity stat of 50, awarding him the coveted skill. The impeccable senses ability heightened his perception, enabling him to gather detailed information about anyone within a specific radius. He stared at his hand, now emanating a soft blue glow, marveling at the newfound clarity with which he perceived the world. It was as if everything had gained a sharper, more vibrant hue. A faint mumbling caught his attention, his enhanced senses instantly zeroing in on the source. Recognizing the voice, Hoyoung realized it was Kim Seong, grumbling about his earlier suggestion to gather at the top of the floor without taking action, calling it reckless and lamenting the exhausting climb. Impressed by the acuity of his hearing, Hoyoung pinpointed Seong's location, 500 meters away. However, the next moment, a foul, unnatural stench assaulted his senses, revealing that the figure wasn't Seong but a doppelganger. A status window promptly confirmed the kill, updating the count to 16 players and 15 doppelgangers, the mission still demanding another kill within 30 minutes. Hoyoung felt a pang of guilt, knowing the doppelganger had perfectly mimicked Seong until its death. He hoped the others were adhering to his plan, remembering the initial agreement, bolstered by Kim Jun-song's support. Though real-time events remained unpredictable, Hoyoung's sense of triumph was short-lived. His heart sank as he noticed that another player had fallen, reducing the numbers to 15 players and 15 doppelgangers. Panic spurred him into action as he scanned his surroundings, his heightened senses picking up on faint sounds that led him to a gruesome scene. Go Young was doppelganger, level 5, had just murdered another player. Hoyoung swiftly dispatched the doppelganger, the status window reflecting 14 players and 13 doppelgangers. Relief washed over him for stopping it before further damage could be done. But as he inspected the fallen level 4 Lee Byongkyol, confusion set in. The wound was inconsistent with Go Young's weapon. It was an arrow wound. His gaze darted around, and his eyes caught sight of Kim Jun-song, bow in hand, ready to attack. Instinctively, Hoyoung ducked behind a tree, realizing there might be another culprit at play. When Jun-song called out, demanding to know who was there, Hoyoung noticed the arrow wound on Jun-song's shoulder and considered the possibility that it had been self-inflicted by his doppelganger. Cautiously, he approached, attempting to explain the situation, but Jun-song remained wary, keeping his distance. Pointing to the dead doppelganger, Hoyoung finally convinced Jun-song of his identity. With a grave nod, Jun-song warned him about his own doppelganger before collapsing from exhaustion, and Hoyoung rushed to his aid. After some time, Hoyoung helped Jun-song to his feet, and they continued together. Overcome with guilt, Jun-song apologized profusely, lamenting that if he hadn't fled, perhaps others might still be alive. The horrifying thought of a malicious doppelganger bearing his likeness and sowing chaos weighed heavily on his conscience. Hoyoung, understanding his turmoil, reassured him, insisting that none of them were to blame. They were all trapped in the tower's cruel game, and their only focus should be on surviving. Suddenly, Hoyoung's senses flared, alerting him to Chai Yizil and Seo Juno rushing towards them, calling out his name. Yizil, visibly relieved, expressed her concern after hearing about the recent deaths, while Juno, equally distressed, struggled to comprehend how 2 players could have fallen so quickly. Yizil began to examine Jun-song's injuries, offering to heal him, but Hoyoung, instinct screaming, stepped in, urging Junsong to stay back. The approaching figures were not their real comrades but doppelgangers. Junsong, still reeling from the shock, watched as Seo Juno's doppelganger launched itself at Hoyoung, ranting about an old grudge from a death mission and questioning whether Hoyoung still harbored resentment, despite his reputed kindness. Their weapons clashed with a harsh, metallic screech. Junsong, shaking off his stupor, joined the fray, pledging to take on the other doppelganger. Hoyoung, bewildered by the brazen assault of these doppelgangers, wondered why they were so bold, especially when one of them held Yiziel's memories and should have known of his strength. But there was no time to ponder. Chai Yiziel's doppelganger seized the opportunity, lunging at Hoyoung from behind. He barely evaded the strike, his body moving with the fluid precision his skill granted him. As both doppelgangers pressed their attack, he expertly maneuvered, dodging and countering each strike with calculated precision. Just as he began to gain the upper hand, an arrow whizzed past his face, narrowly missing him. His gaze snapped toward Kim Junsong, who smirked disdainfully, complaining about a missed opportunity.
To be continued. If you want to watch the next part, then like and subscribe and let me know in the comment of what recap you want to watch next.